We do our part, and God does the rest. Right? We talked about that last week, so I promise this will not be the same homily. But I think when we reflect on that phrase, one of the things that we can struggle with is that God does the rest part. That God does the rest. I think if we're all honest with ourselves, there are times that we think, are you really, are you really doing your thing, Lord? Are you holding your end of the bargain? It's not dissimilar in our gospel. We have our disciples on the boat, and they're feeling the same way. Here they are, waves crushing into the boat, and they cry out loudly, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And similarly, in the first reading, God is responding to Job, but all up until this point in the first reading, Job has said to God, "Hey man, there's a lot going wrong in my life. All of my family have died. I've lost all of my income. I've lost everything. I need you to show that you care." I think all I have to do is say COVID-19, 9/11, either world war, for all of us to think of moments in our lives where we thought, is God really showing up? Is God showing up for us? In a similar way as well, not just on a macro human level, but when we bring it home. I had a friend who bought a brand new car last year. This seems trivial, and it is, but just after he bought it, he was parked on the side of the street and someone sideswiped it. Poor guy. Thought, how's this happen to you? But then you think about our parish, and we've experienced tremendous loss this year. Sister Luvia recently passing away last weekend. We've had some tough funerals. Everybody that passes away from our community is tough, but we've had some rough ones this year. I think all of us can think of something in our life that's been difficult and tough. And all of us can think of and join in that song and sing that refrain, "God, do you care? God, are you showing up?" Something that happens, and I think people are well-intentioned when they say this, they want to help people in their grief and in their experience of suffering, especially things that just don't make sense, is they'll say, God must have some purpose. God must have some reason or purpose for this thing in your life. Well, I have to be honest with you, I hate that answer. I absolutely hate it. And it doesn't mean that I'm upset with the people who say it, because I think people are just trying to bring comfort, right? They're just trying to bring comfort. But if that's the God we believe in, I want no part in it. I don't. Because we believe in an all-loving, all-benevolent God. And to think that God would cause evil, that he would intentionally cause suffering in our lives, just to teach us some lesson, I don't want part in that. And I don't think that's the God we believe in. The God we believe in, the God that truly is there for us, is a God who loves us unconditionally. But here's where the rubber hits the road. All-powerful, all-loving. It's hard to reconcile those two things. Here's this all-loving God, and yet we believe that he has the power to prevent all of these things. If you're hoping that I'm going to give you the reason why, you'll be disappointed. Because I can't do that. I can't give the reason why we have suffering. I can't give the reason why people are going through what they're going through. None of us can. That's the whole point of Job in the Old Testament. That suffering exists, we don't know why. But here's what I hope God is trying to give all of us this weekend. That when we face storms, when we face chaos, when it feels like everything is going wrong, that's when God is at his best. That is when God shows up. That is when God wants to be there. And so I think first, before I move on, it's important for us to recognize that God does not cause evil. So 3 very quick examples. Adam and Eve in the Old Testament, and God tells them, don't eat the fruit of the tree. And what do? They do it anyway, right? But God didn't force them. He told them not to. It was their choice, not God's. It was their choice to do it. Then God sent his Son, Jesus Christ, into our world to prove his love for us. And what happened? We, humanity, rejected him. And we put him on a tree. We killed him. God didn't crucify his only Son. We did, not him. And then another example, the crippled man in the gospel that Jesus heals. Was this guy crippled just so that Jesus could show off? No. But the beautiful thing is, in all of these examples, even though God didn't cause them, God shows up. In the chaos and in the suffering of some of us, God shows up. So here's what happens. If you've ever been to the Easter Vigil, you know this, but we sing that Exultate, this great hymn of praise. And during that hymn, at the beginning of the Easter Vigil, we say, "O wonderful fault, O happy fault of Adam," that through this sin, somehow, God did something amazingly beautiful by sending his Son. That God, over and over again, never gave up on us. Whenever we turned away from him, he came back to us. Jesus Christ, we reject him, and what does God do? Raises his Son to new life, and the power of the resurrection offers us healing and salvation. Again, God shows up. And then what about that crippled man? What about him? Well, once again, my favorite show right now, The Chosen, will come back into the homily. But if you've seen the episode of the crippled man, it's beautifully done. And the show begins, and this little boy climbs up a tree, falls, breaks his legs. And because there's no modern medicine, he can't walk. His whole life, he's crippled. Well, eventually he goes by the pool of Siloam. He's just praying that the pagan gods will heal him. And after years and years of suffering and misery and rejection, at the end of the episode, Jesus comes to him and heals him. And this is why I love this show so much, because it became very clear, it was very clear, that Jesus was not the cause of his suffering. Jesus didn't tell this boy to get up into a tree, and he didn't push him out, right? He didn't do that. But he did come. He did come into his suffering, and he brought him healing. I think the question that can arise in all of us, though, is, well, how is this relevant today? How do I see God coming into the storms of our lives today? Well, I think these are two powerful examples. I have a friend who, a little over 10 years ago, lost his daughter who was 9 years old. I cannot imagine that pain and that grief of losing a daughter at 9 years old. And at that time in his life, he was filled with grief, but in some mysterious way, through the gentle love of a priest, he came back to his faith. And in that, he found hope. He found hope that he would see his daughter again. And God, in the way he says it to me, God healed his heart. God made his heart whole again. God didn't cause his daughter's death, but God was there for him in the greatest time of need and trial. Another example, I have these friends who are married, and several years ago, when they were in the years 5 through 8 of their marriage, so during that 3-year span, they were struggling. They wanted to give up. They had 2 kids, and they were never getting along with each other. And through some grace, again, they did not have a lot of faith at that time, and through some powerful grace, they came back to the church. And I make it sound easy, but I know it was a lot harder than I'm saying right now. But they went on a retreat together. The point is, they experienced reconciling love in their marriage. And 9 children later, 20 plus years of marriage, they have a beautiful, intimate friendship with each other. And they would say they hope that no married couple has to go through those 3 years that they went through. But for them, God showed up, and they were able to see God in that storm, and God brought them closer to one another and closer to him. The point is this: we experience chaos, we experience storms, we experience sufferings that are unimaginable, and we can't explain why they happen. But in that chaos, in that suffering, and in those moments, God in some mysterious way draws us to him and says, hey, just like Jesus says to the disciples, I do care, and I will calm this storm. One of my favorite church hymns is called How Firm a Foundation. And maybe this verse will summarize better what I'm trying to say. Imagine, if you will, the disciples, they say that phrase yet again on the boat. Teacher, don't you care? We're perishing. And Jesus wakes up and he says, fear not, I am with you. Oh, be not dismayed, for I am your God, and I still give you aid. I'll strengthen you. I'll help you. I'll cause you to stand, upheld by my righteous, omnipotent hand. My friends, God wants to be there for us in the chaos. My hope and prayer is that we let him.